But here's the thing to keep in mind. Blame more for the 2025 shutdown. Who do Americans blame more? They blame Republicans. The New York Times, by 7 points, they blame Republicans in Congress and Donald Trump. Marist, look at that. Blame Trump and Republicans by 12 points. How about Washington Post? By a 17-point margin. When you look at the data, what you're actually seeing is that more Americans are blaming Republicans than Democrats, which I think really goes against the conventional wisdom, because a lot of folks are saying, hey, Democrats are so divided. But at this particular point, Americans are placing the blame on the Republican shoulders, at least the plurality of them are.
All right, so looking at this, does this match up to what we see historically? Like, how is this different or the same?
Yeah, this is what I think is so notable here is we can go back over time, and this is actually a pretty familiar story. What are we talking about here? Blame more at the start of shutdowns, 95, 96. They blame the Republicans more by 16 points. 2013, blame the Republicans more by 10 points. 2018, 2019, blame the Republicans more by 14 points. And right now, on the average poll, you see that the American public are blaming Republicans more by 12 points than Democrats. So this actually lines up with what we've seen historically. When the government goes in the shutdown, at least in prior occasions, and in this one, what we see is that more Americans are likely to blame Republicans than Democrats, which again, it's why the polling right now doesn't exactly strike me as surprising, despite the fact that Democrats might be messy. Republicans are the ones who are getting more blame because that is what has happened, at least historically speaking.
And also because Democrats are like, look, they have all three branches of government, right? You know,
That's exactly, I think that's so notable, right? It's the Republicans are the ones who have the House, the Senate, and of course the presidency.
Yeah. All right, so
and the Supreme Court. Okay, that was just a few hours ago this morning on CNN as Harry Enton goes through the polls, referenced the government shutdown. Look, I hate government shutdowns. You're going to hear that a lot in this conversation, I'm sure, with our guest. But the fact is, this is the Republicans doing, okay? The fact is, Donald Trump's the president. They control the House. They control the Senate. They could negotiate today and end this, but they don't want to. They want to blame everybody but themselves. They want to take advantage of this opportunity to gut more of our healthcare and more. And the whole thing is ridiculous. It just is just part and parcel from what we've been seeing all week, because this week has been one assault on another, to include an actual assault on an apartment building in Chicago, an insane move, familiar of a Ranger raid that we would do in Afghanistan or Iraq to take down a building of innocent Americans for the most part. But that's what we're seeing. And then it goes on and on. At the same time, as I speak, as we talk right now here in Missouri and Midwest and other places, the soybean farmers are out doing the harvest and they've got nowhere to ship their soybeans. They got nowhere to send it because China took it to zero, all because of one reason: Donald Trump's illegal tariffs. But this, you guys got to watch this one. This is my neighbor to the north in Iowa. This is Joni Ernst, the senator from Iowa, who told us we're all going to die. Watch this conversation about the fact that harvest is occurring and farmers need help.
As a member of the Agriculture Committee from Iowa, I just want to get your reaction to President Trump considering $10 billion in aid to assist American farmers due to these tariff tensions. Obviously, a lot of farmers in your state. What do you make of this? Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, our farmers do need that assistance. They don't like it. They do consider it welfare. They want trade, not aid. And so we really need to see some of these new markets opening up around the globe. We need to see additional domestic consumption of our commodities like soybeans and corn. China is just not budging on this. And unfortunately, we've lost a lot of soybean contracts due to these elongated negotiations. But if there's anybody that can make a deal, it's President Trump. So we'll continue to hope for the best and we'll help our farmers where and how we can. Yeah, and again, hopefully we can save taxpayer dollars by getting the government reopened.
Okay, these elongated trade negotiations, if anybody can make a deal, it's Donald Trump. He's been in office 9 months. Okay, folks, it's October. This is because of Donald Trump. He imposed tariffs on China. China said, F you. They went to Argentina to get the soybeans. But good news, folks, we're going to bail out Argentina too. We're literally going to pay $20 billion to Argentina so that they can sell their soybeans to China. And our farmers are screwed. Americans are last in the Trump administration and the Republican House. And that's where we're thinking. So I want to talk to a member of the House of Representatives on the front line of the fight, another fellow Army veteran. You guys are probably sick of us all hanging out together, but we do it. And that, of course, is Representative Jason Crow. He represents Colorado's 6th Congressional District. I know you know who Jason Crow is. He's a great American. He's fighting hard. He's out front in this fight. I can't wait for you guys to hang out with him. We're going to have a great conversation. I got a ton of his time, so please get yourself comfortable, grab some popcorn, grab a drink. It's Friday night. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman right here on the Midas Touch Network. As always, every Friday night, our big announcement went out on our Substack this week. Check that out at fpwellman.substack.com. But in the meantime, let's go on with the show. Welcome back. I am Fred Wellman still. It's been 30 seconds, maybe 15. I don't know. I lose track. But we're still back. This is On Democracy FP Wellman. Welcome to the show on a Friday night right here in the Midas Touch Network. Man, like I said in the intro, what a crazy week. And, I'm so excited to have their guest tonight. Representative Jason Crow is a fellow Army veteran. He's a Ranger. He actually did Ranger stuff where I just got my tab. However, he represents this Congressional District. He's been on the front line of this fight and a lot of other ones. Sir, Jason Crow, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here on the mic.
Fred, great to be on. Big fan, and I am still Jason Crow too. So we're off to a good start. It worked out with some for coffee. If we're gonna be excess, oh my God!
I put water in mine, but still, yeah, it is. What a week you've had, man. I guess we'll start off with the obvious one. It's how's that shutdown going for you? It's been a madhouse, hasn't it? Up there on the hill and even back at home. I guess I'll start with the easy one. You're back home now. What are you hearing? I mean, I'm sure you're talking to folks at home. I mean, are they trying to blame the Republicans? Are they blaming Democrats? They're frustrated. What's the vibe you're hearing from your?
Well, there's a lot of folks. I've been doing a lot of media, a lot of TV, and these commentators, these talking heads on TV. They're always like, "Who's to blame? What's the polling show? What are where are people placing blame?" And I bristle at that because this isn't about blame. It's not about, how the politics are shaken out or the polling or how someone's race is going to be perceived. This is about the suffering of Americans, right? They are suffering. They can't afford health care. It's about to get substantially worse because of Trump's mega bill. That's what this is about. And then in addition to that, if Donald Trump and the House Republicans think that we are going to sign off on a budget and give them a blank check without any guardrails in place, they have lost their damn mind, right? Think about it this way. This would be the equivalent of going to a bank and applying for a home equity loan. And the bank says, here's $30,000, to make repairs to your home. And you say, thanks, but I'm actually going to use this for a lavish European vacation. The bank would say, no, I'm not giving you that money. That's the same thing, right? Like, we have spent the last 9 months seeing this administration close down agencies that are congressionally created, move money illegally between one bucket of funds to another, politicize the DOJ, send troops into cities, abuse immigrants and migrants, all illegally and unconstitutionally and without authorization from Congress. So if they think we're going to sign off on a budget, they have lost their damn minds.
And that's it, right? I mean, how do you negotiate with someone who's not going to hold it anyways? I mean, there's no negotiation here. Like you said, they've been he's basically created a line item view that doesn't exist in the executive branch. And do you get any sense at all that your colleagues in the House have any clue, or do they really think people are buying these lies, or what's your vibe? What do you hear from those guys? I mean, you ever hear any whispers, or is it really, do they believe this crap?
Well, it depends who you're talking to, right? I mean, Democrats obviously pay attention to this. There are a diminishing number of House Republicans who will still tell you privately that they don't like it, that they have a distaste for Trump, to which I say, great. That means nothing to me anymore unless you're willing to say it publicly, right? Like, it's actually worse. It's actually worse to me if somebody comes to me and says, yeah, I don't like the guy. I'm just playing the game and going along with it. That is worse because it tells me that you know better and you're making a decision based upon your own self-interest and your own willingness to stay in office, than those who have drank the Kool-Aid and don't know any better, right?
Well, it's the cowardice, isn't it? I mean, I said that a lot here. It's like those who were silent are almost more cowardly than those on the front lines. I could say Tim Burchett, I could see Nancy Mason are crazy, but the ones, there's hundreds, several hundred who just kind of quietly go about their business, hoping we don't notice that they're complying with all this. Isn't it? I mean, and those are as dangerous. I mean, we know from history, you and I are both students of history as soldiers, that those are the ones who are just as dangerous as those leading the charge. And if you're not going to stand up, then what's your point of even being there?
Yeah, it's this view that like staying silent will somehow allow them to be, kind of quiet warriors for democracy, and it's just so delusional, right? I've had years ago, after January 6th, I actually remember the night of January 6th, 2021, sitting on the House floor after the police and the guard had retaken the Capitol, and I was sitting on the House floor with a good friend of mine, a Republican friend of mine, and we had a pretty honest conversation. And he said to me, he's like, listen, I hate Donald Trump. I think he's a risk. So what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to keep quiet. I'm going to keep my head down in the foxhole, because if I stick my head out, it's going to get cut off. And then the person who replaces me is not even going to be sitting here having this conversation with you. And I said, okay, I kind of, theoretically understand that. But I said, we need you now. If you think this is getting better, and if you think your silence is going to somehow push back or create guardrails, you are delusional, right? We need you to stick your head out and to speak up, like Liz Cheney did, like Adam Kinzinger did, like all these people that, and they lost their jobs, but they spoke out and did the right thing. And there was value to that. And there's still value to that.
And it feels like so much of that, something I harp on a lot when I speak. I've been giving a lot of speeches lately for reasons. And, I think I harp on a lot is this, it's public service. It's the job's got a name. It's representative. And it just feels like so many of the men and women up there they just kind of forgot the public service part. It's just, I got to get reelected. I got to keep my head down. So I get a mean tweet or God forbid, a true social post or something ridiculous like that. And instead we've got a country we're losing control of our country. And I want to circle that. You kind of touched on it too, is, one of the things we hear is like, it's Article 1 of the Constitution. The legislature, the Congress is Article 1. It's a co-equal branch of government with the executive branch. And it feels like since the Republicans took over, they've become subsidiary. I call them the doormat at Trump Tower. It's like a subsidiary of Trump Inc. is all they're doing. I mean, you highlight, these aren't just things they've changed. Changing the base names is breaking the law. That was passed in a law, right? I mean, he literally is ignoring laws that you have passed, your brothers and sisters have passed within the legislature, and they just simply have no interest whatsoever in doing their jobs that are constitutionally directed, right?
That's totally right. I mean, this is less a story to me about a runaway president who's trying to consolidate power, because that was actually envisioned by our founders. It was envisioned in the Constitution. It's why, as you know well, it's why it's actually structured the way it is, because they envisioned this happening. What they didn't expect is that the Congress would prostrate themselves, Republicans in Congress would prostrate themselves at the altar of Trump and turn away from their duty and allow it to happen, right? Yes, this was a part of what was anticipated. What was not anticipated is people turning away from their duty. That's really what this story is about.
Yeah.
Right? It's Donald Trump has this power because people in Congress, the Republicans in Congress, not people. And I think it's really easy. They have to be very specific who we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like
this isn't both sides. There's no both sides here.
No,
we realize no both
not
sides.
doing us or that. The House Republicans and the Senate Republicans are doing this.
Yep.
Right. They have given Donald Trump this power, and we are probably at a historic high point of presidential power in this country's history, and a congressional low point, because they have allowed that to happen. They have given that power to Donald Trump.
And it's shocking, because that's the things that are happening. The tariffs, that's your job. That's the House's job, right? And he's just doing it, and it's caused untold
Immigration.
Immigration's another example. Yeah, war. I mean, all of this, it's just gone, and he's doing it all, and he's riding all over you guys, and they're just sitting. I joke a lot. It's inappropriate. Like, yes, Daddy. Can I have more? It is got to be frustrating. I mean, you go up there. You're not afraid. You're on the front line of things. You're not afraid to hold your voice back. I mean, how do you withhold your frustration and and then try to actually act? You've got a reasonable opponent, because it does feel like the media still doesn't get it, dude. There are a lot of Americans still don't get it, do that.
Yeah. Well, I do get frustrated and I do get angry. So I don't withhold that. I channel it. Right. Like, so I don't do rage, like public rage. I show anger and resoluteness. I don't mince my words. I think people know that about me. But I also learned in combat that raging doesn't help the teams that I'm leading and doesn't help those around me. Right.
Yep.
I believe in, speaking softly and carrying a big stick. although I speak less softly these days than name Dikey.
I'll just add mellow to my old age. I may have not spoke softly in the Army,
Well, discipline, focus, working the plan relentlessly, right? Because they actually want us to be distracted. That's part of their game, right? They just want to continue to throw things at us and then hope that we're constantly just going to be in reaction mode, never have a chance to work our own strategy, never have a chance to be proactive and aggressive on our own terms. And I refuse to let them dictate the terms of this fight, right? Of course, I'm going to react to crazy stuff because I'm not going to let crazy stuff go because then it normalizes it. But I'm also going to make sure that we are pursuing our own agenda, that we are being aggressive, and we're seizing the momentum. I mean, it's like the principles of warfare we learned in the Army, right? Like momentum really matters, right? And we control that.
Yeah, and let the plan, make a plan, put people in charge, let them go. I say it a lot. It's especially there's enough Democrats on our team that different folks can be focused on different parts of this agenda. We don't all have to chase the same ball. It ends up being her ball, and circling back to the shutdown, and the Democrats the House caucus especially have held the line. This is really about the healthcare cuts, the healthcare subsidies, and the impact it's going to have. I would love to circle back to that and say, make sure people understand who are watching this show and they're smart people. This is really about an incredible skyrocketing of healthcare costs for average Americans.
That's right. That's right. This is the Trump's mega bill is the single largest transfer of wealth in American history. Right? Let's be clear what this bill does. It gives massive tax breaks to the billionaires, the top 1%, not even the top 1%, the top like 0.1%, and CEOs, and it does so in the back of working class Americans. Period.
Yep.
Right. And mainly through healthcare. Right. There's other ways in which it does it, but shifts that burden on increased healthcare premiums, cuts the Medicare, Medicaid, which, by the way, impact the entire system. Right. Sometimes people back home will say, "Well, I'm on the Cadillac program through my employer. I have an employer sponsored program. It's a Cadillac Platinum program. Why should I care about Medicare or Medicaid cuts or insurance premiums on the exchange?" And the answer is, well, because the same hospitals and the same providers and the same doctors that you get your care from also provide care to these other folks. And their margins are very thin, right? So these hospitals are going under, the clinics are going under, the doctors and nurses are leaving the profession. Because if you're running a 5 to 6% profit margin, and 10 to 15% of your patients are Medicare or Medicaid patients, well, there you go. You're no longer in the black, right? And that's literally what's happening. That's not my opinion. The CEOs of numerous hospitals in Colorado have told me this clearly, that there are 10 hospitals in Colorado that are now at risk of closure. One that's at severe risk of closure soon. They just can't do business anymore. So that's going to send shockwaves through the whole system.
Yeah, and that's why I think, and it's also, I think I saw a chart recently. The number one employer in the majority of states these days is healthcare. I know here in my Congressional 2 in Missouri, the number one employer is healthcare. So we're not just talking about people losing their healthcare; they're also going to lose their jobs. And then that's before we talk about research, right? I mean, all these things are going to impact Americans in very real ways. And the numbers are astounding. I know here in Missouri, they announced that when the ACA window opens again here next month, at least the ACA rate is going to go from 14 to 40% higher. This is an astounding number. It is an astounding number. And that's before we talk about the 21,500 in my congressional district are going to absolutely lose their health care. So it is a game.
Can we talk about seniors too? That over half of folks in nursing homes and or assisted living facilities in this country are getting Medicare and Medicaid, right? So we cut that funding, right? And these they may not be able to afford to stay in those senior homes anymore. And we already don't have enough assisted living facilities in America. Like, try to find one for your parent or grandparent. It's actually really hard. Those are going to go belly up too. It's going to become much harder for everybody.
And then the next step of this is that 21 states have, I think, or is it 31 states have familial responsibility laws. So if your parents, if you're elderly parent, if you have no relationship with your parents at all, cannot take care of themselves or find a nursing home, you are legally responsible for their bills and for their care. I think Colorado is one of them. So it really is. We talk a lot in the military about it. We talk second and third order effects. I was a planner in the Army. That was my job. Other than flying helicopters and being a PAO, I was an operations planner. And I used to say all the time, we have to think about the second and third order effects. Every operation you do has second and third order effects. And so people just say, well, we're just tossing them off, or, and that won't affect anything. The shutdown's the same way. The second and third order effect, I don't know if you've heard from small businesses, but my own daughter owns a small business in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Fredericksburg it's all people who work for 3-letter agencies of the Marines. And when we freeze the government, we shut down the government, they don't get paid and they don't buy bath bombs. I mean, I remember during the last shutdown 6 years ago, her business damn near went out of business too. There are second and third order effects. It's not just some government bureaucrats not getting paid, is it?
That's right. And actually did a small business roundtable recently in my district, and they're already hurting because of tariffs.
Right.
And in Colorado, they're already hurting because of the immigration raids, right? Where about 40% of Colorado construction workers, laborers on our construction sites is immigrant and refugee labor. And these folks aren't showing up to work anymore. They're scared. They're scared of the environment. And these are people who are working and owning businesses. Our restaurants can't keep staff. Our construction crews can't staff their jobs. And then you put on top of it the shutdown and pretty bad economic numbers and increasing unemployment. And they have a real perfect storm for people running businesses right now.
Yeah. And I think the party's going to run out. And touching on that topic, I think you represent Aurora, don't you? And so you were targeted during the campaign with lies about Venezuelan gangs and everything else. And now this week we saw a raid, and then it kind of touches both our lives, right? I was a Black Hawk pilot. You're an Army Ranger. They raided an apartment building in Chicago like it was a raid in Somalia or Afghanistan, where they literally, I think they fast roped agents onto the roof of an apartment building and then knocked down every door in the building and arrested everybody until they could sort out if they're criminals or it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I both served. I think you did Iraq as well and Afghanistan. I mean, I often find myself going, I've seen this game play out. I know where this goes. I mean, I don't want to live in a country where men in black helicopters or black trucks can just grab people off the streets. I mean, does it shock you as a veteran of combat to see of our modern war specifically, especially that the same kind of things you saw, frankly, us doing to our enemies, let's be honest, is being done to actual Americans right here in Chicago and Aurora, Colorado?
The emotions that I have, I mean, I'm shocked by it. I'm deeply saddened by it. To see the militarization of federal law enforcement in this way, first of all, it's just bad. It's just bad law enforcement, right? Everybody knows that law enforcement is a skill and it's a trade, and you have to, have personal skills. You have to develop trust with people. You have to be able to investigate. You have to, people have to open up homes and invite you into your businesses. Like that's actually, in fact, effective law enforcement, to have trust and know your community. I mean, you're rolling around like you're a ranger or a SEAL in a community, and the only option is to do what these people are doing, which is abusive, right? So it's just actually bad law enforcement. It's not making people safer. And then I fought overseas, as did you, to prevent stuff like that at home. Right? I wanted to go and deal with our adversaries. And I was willing to do so in some of the toughest places in the world so that we could have peace and security and safety here, so that my children and everyone else's children wouldn't have to live in that environment and be subjected to that. And Donald Trump is bringing that to our communities. And then on top of it, these agents, as you just pointed out as well, masked agents without identification and unmarked vehicles, grabbing people off the street without hearings, deporting them to foreign prisons. I mean, that is literally one of the biggest reasons why our founders rebelled against the crown, because of habeas corpus.
We had a whole ass revolution about this.
It came to be.
I know.
So that you have to have a hearing, and the government has to prove you are who they say you are, and that you committed a crime, right? And they're doing away with that too. It's really appalling.
And it's shocking. I saw an interview with a young woman her door was knocked down. She was scooped up. She was thrown in a truck and then returned 12, 13 hours later after they made sure she didn't have any warrants. It's like, it's not legal though, but it has become legal thanks to the Supreme Court probably. But the idea that the traumatizing Americans, I think that's what bothers me a lot too, is you and I swore an oath to the Constitution. That was a very clear oath. It was everybody. There's no caveat. There's no star next to it. It covers everybody here. And to treat Americans and traumatize Americans like they're the enemy. I think That's what scares me a lot about the dialogue we're hearing from the Republicans, from people like Pete Hegseth, which we'll definitely talk about, is that that our fellow Americans are enemies of some kind, that certain Americans are enemies. That's a terrifying thing for those of us who actually, and I don't know how much you did. You were much more of a direct action role than I was, but I did a lot of civil affairs work in Iraq. That was my first, after I took over Northern Iraq, I was doing civil affairs. And talking to the stories, I tell the story often of my friend, Dr. Muhammad, who told me when we started having the bombs go off in Northern Iraq in 2003, I went to him, I said, I don't get it, Dr. Muhammad. Why is no one reporting this? Why they see it being buried? Why don't they call the Iraqi army, whatever we had for police at the time? And he says, Major Wellman, you must understand that for 35 years under Saddam, you learned not to see things. You didn't see when the men in the black vehicle rolled up next door and took the family in the middle of the night.
Right.
And I remember thinking to myself, God, thank God, I don't have to worry about that at home. And in 2025, we do, don't we? I mean, in 2025, we do.
It's so, it's just so shocking that this is happening here. And Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and the rest of the minions there, the point of law enforcement for them and the military for them is not to keep people safe, is not to create a sense of safety, not to enforce the laws and to prevent crime. It's to intimidate. It's to assert power. And we just can't tolerate that. And I'm simply not going to vote to fund that. I won't.
Yep.
I gave.
And do you feel that pressure because of that? I mean, do you feel pressure from your constituents? I mean, we did talk about it very honestly. People are going to get hurt by this shutdown, but is it sort of the moment where you said I feel like, and look, I'm not, obviously my daughter may get hurt by this shutdown, but you said something key about bullies. I mean, this is bullies. These are bullies. Stephen Miller's a bully. Donald Trump's a bully. And we can't just keep letting him punch us in the face and think it's get better, right? I mean, you guys have taken a stand. You dug your heels in this time.
Yeah. The way I describe it, so I get questions about it more than pressure. People ask me why, what's going on. And, I have a lot of military in Colorado, and a lot of defense contractors and businesses that stand to be impacted by this. But I think what they understand is that my job isn't simply to keep the train on the rails if the train is running towards a bridge that's collapsed or a bridge that isn't solid, right? Because ultimately, if they expect me just to put the train back on the rails and keep it running towards disaster, that's not doing my job, right? I need to make sure that the train is on the right rails, right? And that's my constitutional obligation, is not to just, pass any budget and just keep the lights on. It's to pass the right budget. And it is to pass a budget that is lawful, that is constitutional, that is moral, and that will preserve our democracy. That is actually the obligation.
Starting a business is very hard. You're going through everything with finding out your logo, building your website, getting your point of sale set up, your inventory, supply chains these days. Don't get me started about that. When my family started a business 12 years ago in a small town in Virginia, that was one of the big challenges we had. How do we find a point of sale that works? How do we run an online store? How does it all integrate with our social media channels and everything else? And we were just glad we finally found a partner that works so well for us. And that's where Shopify comes in. Shopify is a commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and it's 10% of all e-commerce just in the US alone, from household names that like Mattel and Gymshark, to brands just getting started, or brands you should know like Sugar and Spruce in Fredericksburg, Virginia. You can get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store to match your brand's style. Now, you start your content creation. Shopify is packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography for you. You can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. Easily create email and social media campaigns whenever your customers are scrolling or strolling, and it integrates directly into your point of sale system. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. So if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. So that's where we come in. Turn your big business idea into... That's right. Sign up to your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Fred. That's go to Shopify Shopify.com/Fred. One more time for those at home, Shopify.com/Fred. You can start your business now and grow it successfully. Yeah. And that, I love it. And that is it. And being a minority party at this time, you've got very few tools in your toolbox with our system. And this is one of the tools. Our Senate colleagues do have the tool that they're going to need their votes to pass this. And so far they've held strong and dug their heels in. And that's a good thing. Are you hearing that? I mean, look, it looks like the House caucus, you guys have done a good job this Congress of kind of sticking together. Do you feel like everybody understands for the most part the solidarity we have to feel to stand up as one?
Yeah, certainly in the House and increasingly in the Senate. I don't mean to paint with a broad stroke, because there were some senators that opposed the April funding bill, but I think some folks there were slower to realize that we're not in normal times. And there's no good faith negotiation by this president. There's no handshake or word is their bond mentality, that they will lie and break a promise as soon as they make it, right? So that has to be written, has to be in law, has to be enforceable, and that is the environment we're in. And I think between April, when the Senate did vote to pass the funding bill, to today, I think most Democratic senators have come to realize that. And as you mentioned, we've been pretty damn good in the House, right? Unanimous, right? Numerous votes where every single Democrat has opposed some of these egregious bills. That is actually rare, right? Because we are a broad tent. We're a big tent. We have moderates. We have center right. We have liberals. We have we just use all the terms, and like we still are a big tent. We're not a lockstep party of one person. And to get everyone on the same page takes leadership.
Yeah, it does. And that's good to see. And you guys get beat up a lot for it too. And speaking of leadership, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about our friend Pete Hexa. It's funny. A lot of people were really anxious about.
You're using the term trend, by the way, and the way but I always thought I was starting doing House floor speeches, like we're friends. This my friend from Alabama, like we're even. Sai is not my friend.
No, he's an asshole. He's really I can say you can't. He's an asshole. I've known her for a long time. Yeah, I've known Pete for a decade or more, and so I ran into a DC to my previous life. Pete said was a better taller, but yeah, but this guy is, and people freaked out about this meeting. This is the end of democracy, and I tell you, I came out strong and said, no, it's a video shoot. It's a video shoot. He's going to prowl the stage, and it's like, this is what you and I can appreciate. This is what a squad leader would do, or a weak platoon leader. I had somebody that weak platoon, first sergeant, or platoon sergeant, you get the troops in here. I'm telling them about how it works. And he literally summoned, 600 or so generals and sergeant majors and senior enlisted advisors to sit there while he prowled the stage as a failed major with his outrageous bigoted shit, talking about our women service members and fatties and just the most ridiculous, embarrassing shit I've ever seen. I mean, what was as a combat veteran, especially, you look at this guy. What do you think?
Yeah, you're spot on, Fred. That's what weak leaders do.
Yeah,
it's posture and pound chest, right? And what he reminded me of? He reminded me of Captain Sobel in Band.
Exactly. Exactly. I was just watching. Like, I think you watched him when he plays,
right? He's giving people shit. He's demeaning people. He's pounding his chest and acting tough, and that's not what a combat leader does. Like just imagine being one of those generals or admirals in there, and you've been in uniform for 40 years. You took your first oath when you were 18. You've been on 12 combat deployments. You've had friends die over the last 20 years in combat for this country. You uproot your family every 3 years. You work 80, 90 hour weeks running missions to keep people safe. You've given everything to this country, and you're called away from your missions into a conference room in Virginia to listen to Pete Hegseth pound his chest and walk in front of a flag and talk about the warrior ethos and grooming standards and the right way to shave. What a horrible scene, right?
I just can't. Honestly, yeah. And I had the parallel. Yeah.
But the point wasn't. But it's horrible and it's dishonorable, but it's also dangerous.
Well,
because the point was not to talk to those generals. That wasn't the audience, right? Those generals and admirals weren't the audience. The audience was, the broader American public to show. It was a show of force. It was like, hey, these people will be obedient to us. We're in charge, right? And it was to lay the groundwork for military using the military in the United States, right? Donald Trump used the word insurrection. He talked about the enemy from within. He talked about going to war with American cities. Like, they are slowly building this case, right? We're like the boiling frog in water here, where they're raising the temperature to normalize this, and we need to be vigilant, and we need to not allow it to become normalized, because they're going to try to do it.
And a lot of people have said to me, and I know you're running out of time. A lot of people said to me when I speak that, how come the military hasn't stood up? And I say all the time, it's not time yet. I don't want them to. Like, that, while there's been a lot of inappropriate and questionably legal things they're doing, there will come a moment when we're going to need the military to say, this is an unlawful order, I refuse. And I've been telling my friends to hold their powder till then. These men and women need to hold their power and keep the faith. And the last thing, do you think there's an
peaceful, and to that point, real quick, I mean, peaceful protest, peaceful dissent, and for these commanders to express their views, in a peaceful but very forceful way, like, to say, no, this is not constitutional, because they have independent obligations. As we remember from our time in service, that they have independent obligations not to carry out something that's unconstitutional or unlawful. And of course, that's why they got rid of the JAG officers. They fired a bunch of JAG officers earlier this year to try to get rid of, those advisors to the commanders who are supposed to be doing that. But their independent obligation remains.
And it terrifies me. I know we're going to run over time. I'm sure I'm going to get yelled at by staff, but I mean, yeah, we were joking in the pre-show about him not having a Ranger tab, but the smearing of these generals, and I feel like for years now, especially Hegseth, even before he was in office, while he was a Fox News commentator, while he was backing up all the war criminals, and you and I were leaders in combat of men who blew shit up. Okay, I had the Pathfinder platoon in my battalion, the famed 101st Airborne Pathfinder platoon here, who literally shaved their heads at Mohawks before we went to Iraq, as well as World War II. We have men who go in and break things, but you and I know, killing things and breaking, especially in a Ranger time, believe it or not, it's still not really our job. There's other things. It feels like everything is a hammer for these guys, and so the solution is that everything is a nail. When the only thing the military is good for is killing and breaking, that means you're going to try and kill and break a lot of things. Right. And they're trying to separate the leaders from the troops. I mean, I thought it was very interesting that the commanders were dragged there and lectured like children and broadcast to the troops too. Do you ever feel like there's an attempt here to separate the real soldiers from the woke generals? I mean, it's something we hear a lot. I mean, do you ever get that vibe as a former leader?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are. I was less. It's a good point. I think I was less concerned about the impact on those generals and admirals who have been doing this for decades, and whose mentality and leadership style is already well settled. Right. Than I am on those junior leaders. Those privates, those sergeants, those young lieutenants, who are they're still in the formative stages of their career and in their leadership development, the message they're getting. And I do believe that Hegseth and Trump and others are trying to shape that generation into a very different model, and not just a incorrect model, but a less effective one, right? Because Pete Hegseth is a chicken hawk. He's one of those people that loves to use war terminology and talk about lethality and killing and blowing things up. And in my experience, having been in 3 combat deployments and over 100 combat missions, the people that are pounding their chest the most and talking about how cool that is are the people that have done the least, right? And actually don't know what it's like, the moral injury and the burden of taking a life, of being thrust into a situation where you're fighting amongst a civilian population, and just how excruciating that is. Right? How hard it is to see civilians get wrapped up and injured in that, right? Because if you're doing it right, if you maintain your humanity, and if you are doing this the right way, you care about those people who are caught up in this, right? Those civilians, right? You're not just blowing shit up and mowing things down, right? Because that destroys you as a person, and it actually doesn't accomplish the mission. We know that clearly. Right, it actually sets us back and creates more enemies than it resolves, and that's something that they'll never understand.
Well, you literally took the words out of my mouth. I think I've written that. And you know, one of my dearest friends, probably the worst PTSD I know, friend of mine from combat from the Army, his really stemmed from getting in a tussle at checkpoint with an Iraqi, this is a Desert Storm actually, and an retreating Iraqi officer decided he was going home to Baghdad, got in a you know, full on hand-to-hand combat at a checkpoint, and he pulled his weapon and his 9mm stuck in the guy's belly and emptied the magazine until the fight was over. He's never safe, you know, because the idea, we are raised here in America to believe in life, you know, and taking another human's life, whether it's an enemy or not, whether you're, you know, or God forbid, taking a civilian's life, it leaves a mark. And none of these men and women who do talk tough and talk about, like Stephen Miller, my God, Stephen Miller talking about, you know, bringing the hammer, like, my God, man, you've never heard, least of which hearing a shot fired in anger, but never heard an angry word. It just shocks me. I guess I've let you go. The last one,
Can I say one more thing? And that's why it makes me so angry, right? Because, you know, I grew up working class in the upper Midwest. I you know, worked construction and minimum wage fast food jobs, you know, in high school.
Yep.
And, you know, struggled economically during a lot of my life. And, you know, the chest pounding of, you know, elites and people in Washington that love to talk tough and talk about, you know, vanquishing our enemy and going after people. Listen, I'm all about vanquishing enemies and going after people that threaten my family and my country. And I've done that, and I would always do that. But usually it's the people that are talking tough that are not the ones that are having to do it. Every time someone pounds, which is why I've been so in favor of war powers reform and Congress retaking its power and reforming these authorizations for use of military force and using force as a last resort, which this president is not doing. Trump is not doing. He's doing the opposite because every time someone saber rattles or pounds their chest, some kid from a city or a town that maybe we've never heard of, working class usually, has to pick up a rifle, jump into a helicopter or a tank, and get the job done. And I've been that kid, you've been that kid, and it's tough, right? That's why it has to be last resort, and that's why these people who don't understand that and are cavalier with other people's lives and the burden that they're putting on other people will always be cavalier about it, and why we need to fight back.
That's a great place to wind things up. I couldn't agree more. And I'm glad you're there. I really do mean that. I'm not just blowing smoke because, you know, I appreciate you being in the fight. I know it's uncomfortable a lot of times. So we appreciate you being there and carrying the fight. We've both been through fights before we ever got to this point, but it just never ends. So here we go. So thanks for your time. Thanks for so much of your time. I know the audience is going to love seeing you. So keep it the fight, sir. It's good seeing you.
All right. Yeah, you too.
It's just a great conversation with Representative Crow. Two old soldiers telling war stories. You guys have gotten used to that, I guess, at this point, since you join me so often. Look, it's a tough time. People are anxious. There's a lot of uncertainty. I'm not a fan of government shutdowns. I'll tell you that. I know the effects. Like I said, I've suffered from. I know my fellow veterans are going to suffer. I know my own daughter's going to suffer, her business. I get it. But there is a point we have to dig our heels in. And as the minority party, the Democratic Party has very few options. And this is one of them, which is, no, we refuse to comply. We will not comply. Those who sit silently, like my own representative, that are compliant, are just as bad. You know the damage is being done. And to pretend you don't see it is a lie. And so at some point, things are going to have to change. And so the Democrats are doing something very extreme to do that. And I think we need to back them. Don't let the Republicans lie to us that this is the Democratic shutdown. It is not. Last time I checked, they control the House, the White House, the Senate, and let's be honest, they control the freaking Supreme Court too. And so it's time for us to fight back. And we need people in Washington who fight back. So having Jason Crow on the show this week is such a approach because he's fighting back and he has a lifetime of service like I do and relate in that way. But we have got a fight on our hands for the soul of this country. That's not a small thing to say, you guys. This is the very soul of our country. And if we don't stand up, if we don't draw the line at some point, we're going to lose it all. And look, Trump's rattling the saber that he and Rushmore are going to destroy the government, then we will hold them accountable. But we must hold strong. You must have the strength. You must support candidates that are running in tough places. You must volunteer for races. You hear me every week say this. There isn't a person running for office right now that doesn't need your help. And so if you could do it, I appreciate it. Now, with that, I did make my big announcement. I can't really talk about it directly here, but I made my big announcement on the 1st of October. Many of you already know it. I'm very proud to be doing this next mission that we've launched. If you want to find out exactly what that is, you can go to fpwellman.substack.com. I put out a Substack about it. I'll put out more. Go to fpwellman.substack.com. You can find out what we're up to. I'd love your help and support as we go forward. In the meantime, always join us here. I'm still doing my day job right here on Democracy and the Friday Night Midas Touch Network. We're going to kick in with more In the Hot Seats. I've decided to talk to some people who are stepping up to run for Congress and Senate, and even governor. We'll keep kicking those off in the next 2 weeks again, back on In the Hot Seats. Look for those on the Midas Touch Network. In the meantime, follow us everywhere. I'm on Blue Sky, Twitter. I don't know what they call these things anymore. Instagram. Follow us everywhere. Again, I am Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy FQ Wellman. Thank you to our sponsor, Shopify, who's my favorite sponsor. We actually use them. Thank you for all of you and your support for me and the democracy. And I look forward to seeing you next week. And we will. Keep it the fight, man. This stuff never ends, guys. But we're in it. We're in the fight. We're not done yet. Thanks.